What's up, guys? Neil Orfield here, and I'm going to show you how I will be setting up my fantasy cruncher for Thursday night football between the Eagles and the Texans. This is for the DraftKings largest field GPP. Some of the steps that I'll be taking here, I would not be taking if I were playing cash games or some smaller field GPPs. This is for the largest field GPPs only. The first thing I'm going to do is take a look at what the optimal looks like. So I'm going to go down here, change this to use my projections. I just crunch out 10 lineups, see what kind of salary they're using, what the lineups look like. Actually, now that I think about it, I think that this is could be a pointless exercise because we have Brandon Cooks currently in. He may be playing tomorrow. It's kind of up in the air right now. He's been not practicing this week. He's been tweeting out weird stuff. No idea what's going on with Brandon Cooks. I think there's a good chance that he doesn't play tomorrow. So this is what the optimals will look like if Brandon Cooks is a go. If Brandon Cooks is not a go, I think the optimal lineups might look a little bit different, might leave a little bit more salary on the table. Even as is, actually, you can see this optimal here. This is the number six optimal, leaves $1,500 on the table. So tomorrow will be an opportunity to leave a little bit more salary on the table and still, make some pretty decent lineups. And especially with Brandon Cooks out, my guess is you'll be able to leave extra salary on the table tomorrow, potentially. So something to keep in mind as you're building your lineups. If you haven't gathered from me talking about tomorrow, I'm making this video on Wednesday night, so maybe things will happen overnight that will change the outlook of this slate, but it doesn't really matter for the purpose of how I'm setting up my fantasy cruncher. I don't really go into player decisions in this video. I just go over how I'm going to be setting up my fantasy cruncher based on what I do know or what I assume I know right now, which is the running backs involved in this game, the quarterbacks involved in this game, and the general outlook of the game. All right, so since we've seen that, I'm going to go here. Next up, I'm clicking on this captain tab, and I'm going to set a cap on all of my captains, exposure cap. I'm going to go ahead and set that at 20% across the board, just in the captain spot. So now I can't have more than 20% of any captain. I'm just going to take a peek here real quick. Yeah, so we actually have Jalen Hurts optimal 22% of the time. We have some positive leverage on Jalen Hurts. This might be a spot where I'm willing to go above 20% on Jalen Hurts specifically. So I'm setting 20% for everybody, but I might actually give a little boost to Jalen Hurts just because he looks so good in this spot. It seems like a pretty great spot for him. I'm just going to change that to 30% for Jalen Hurts. So now I can potentially get up to 30% of Jalen Hurts. All right, now I'm going to go into advanced options. And again, that 30% number I just put on Jalen Hurts, I haven't decided what I'm doing tomorrow. Got a lot of time to think about this. I might end up putting 100% Jalen Hurts and just jamming in Jalen Hurts captain. I don't think that's what I'm going to do. That's not usually an approach that I take, but it's at least something that you could consider doing. For now, I'm going to leave that at 30%. That seems like a pretty good number where things lie right now. All right, in this general tab, unique players per lineup, I'm going to leave at one unique player per lineup. I'm making 150 lineups. I don't care if some of them are one away from each other. If you're making 20 or fewer lineups, I would probably recommend changing this to 2 unique players per lineup just to have a more diverse lineup set. It's really about personal preference, but you're going to cover more bases with 2 there. Salary cap, I don't set a minimum salary. I do set a maximum salary. If you've watched these videos before, I do this in order to avoid being duplicated. I don't want to have a lineup that's going to be duplicated 100 times, 200 times. And even if I win, everything goes perfectly. I don't make much money at all. I'm making $5,000. If I win, if I make that lineup that is perfect, I want it to be a lineup that's not duplicated much so that I'm winning hundreds of thousands of dollars or at least tens of thousands of dollars in the event that I do win. So I am going to set a max salary cap. We saw that within the first 10 optimal, within the first 6, we had a lineup that used $48,500. So leaving $1,500 on the table, you have one of the top 6 optimal lineups. And that's probably less likely to be used than, a lineup using $50,000. So we can really leave some salary on the table here. It's up to you how much you want to leave on the table. I'm just going to set it. I usually set it at 4,900 here. I'm just going to set it at 48,800. I think that there is an opportunity here where you could potentially leave more money than that on the table on this slate. If we do have Brandon Cooks ruled out, we already have Nico Collins out, so we're going to have some cheap options at wide receiver for the Texans. If you think the Texans are going to be able to move the ball, they'll make some sense. Offensive players versus defense. Default is set to 2 players. I'm going to change that to 5. We just saw this win on FanDuel. We had 4 players from one team against the defense of the other team in that Bengals game. We had actually 4 Browns against the Bengals defense, which was a bit of a surprise. Not how we expected that game to go, but it can certainly happen on DraftKings as well, where you have full onslaught. One team does all the damage. In this case, the more likely scenario would be the Eagles. Offense doing great, but maybe the Texans, the offense doesn't do anything, but the Texans have, a couple sacks or maybe fumble recovery for a touchdown, pick six. They can score some points. Maybe that's the way Texans get on the board in this game while the offense can't do anything. So I don't mind at all having 5 players from one team against the defense of the other team. It's not something that's going to come up in a lot of my lineups anyway. It's just something that I want to allow if it does make sense in some lineups. I'm leaving my global exposure cap at 100%. As you saw, I did change that cap in the captain spot, but for flex players, if I get 100% of a player, I might be okay with that. Somebody like Jalen Hurts, that might make some sense tomorrow. I don't know exactly the number that I'm shooting for tomorrow, but typically I leave that at 100% and adjust as I go once I see the lineups. Randomness, I'm going to turn on. I am using normal distribution randomness, which generally means that I can use a little bit more randomness than if you were using classic randomness. So I'm going to use 50% randomness. I've actually thought about decreasing this as I go, just because it makes it easier to see what I want in my lineups and get it to do what I want. I think I might. No, I've had enough success with 50%. I think I'll leave it there, but something that I'm at least contemplating doing is lowering that number just to give myself a little bit more control, so I don't need to crunch quite so many times before I get to exposure levels that I like for different players. If you are using classic randomness, I might recommend using 30 or 40% here. And if you want a little bit more control, as I was saying, as I might consider doing at some point, you could also lower this just for easier control over getting to the exposures that you want of different players and such. For now, I'm just going to leave this at 50%. Hey guys, we have a great offer for new users only. You can get full access to everything Stokastic has to offer for NFL for 3 days free. Projections, ownership, 1v1 tools, lineup generator, top stacks tool, all free. Zero risk. Sign up now. The link is in the description of this video. Note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included in this offer. Minimum projection included in calculation, the default is set to 3. That means that any player who projects for fewer than 3 fantasy points will not be included in your player pool. If you want to include some of those players in your player pool, you could either decrease this number here, or you can just go in and manually boost their projection to 3 or more fantasy points. That is my plan. I'm going to leave this at 3, but I might be boosting some players up above 3 fantasy points. And then players from each team max. I don't mind having 5 players from one team against 1 from the other team, a full onslaught. Those lineups tend to go underused, maybe not on this slate. I'm guessing there will be a lot of 5-1 Philly stacks on this particular slate, but those lineups can make sense. So I'm going to allow it in my crunches here. All right, and then the only other tab that I use here is the groups tab. And generally my groups revolve around quarterbacks. I'm going to start by making a group with Jalen Hurts at captain in the key spot. So this whole group revolves around lineups that when I have Jalen Hurts in the captain spot. And then I'm going to go ahead and add every Eagles pass catcher to this secondary group, starting with Zach Pascal, AJ Brown, Quez Watkins, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Jack Stoll, Grant Calcaterra. Can't tell you I know who Grant Calcaterra is, but he has a projection, so I'm adding him. Also going to add these running backs. I got to say, I was pretty surprised to see Miles Sanders has only been targeted 13 times so far this year. Or maybe he's caught 13 passes. I might have that wrong, but either way, has not been getting a ton of targets this year. He was only targeted about twice per game last year. Jalen Hurts just does not seem to target his running backs, so they don't look that great here. I am going to include them and maybe just give them small boosts, but with Jalen Hurts, because he is such a great rushing quarterback and can do so much damage, pick up so many fantasy points on the ground, I'm actually not going to require him to be paired with any pass catchers, even when he's in the captain spot. I'm going to click this only apply plus minus adjustments. And then I'm going to boost the pass catcher. So I could theoretically have lineups now that have Jalen Hurts in the captain spot without any pass catchers in the flex spot, which is something that I generally try to avoid if I have a non-rushing quarterback, because it's hard for a non-rushing quarterback to put up, many fantasy points through the air without bringing along one of their pass catchers. But with a rushing quarterback, Jalen Hurts could have 100 yards rushing and a touchdown and get just the bulk of his fantasy points on the ground and not necessarily bring along any pass catchers, especially if he throws, one touchdown to AJ Brown. Well, AJ Brown is 11,200, so maybe AJ Brown is too expensive to make it into the lineup. If he only has, 40 receiving yards and a touchdown and 2 catches, that might not be enough to make it into the optimal lineup. And it is possible for Jalen Hurts to be in the optimal lineup without any pass catchers. I don't think it's a big concern on this particular slate because I do think we have a lot of value here. My guess is also that one of these pass catchers will make it into the optimal. So I'm allowing for Jalen Hurts to be a captain with no pass catchers. I don't think it's going to happen a whole lot. And I also am going to be giving boosts to his pass catchers to make it more likely that they make it into the lineup. AJ Brown already has such a high projection that I'm not going to give him much of a boost. I don't want to have AJ Brown in every single lineup where I have Jalen Hurts a captain. So if I gave him too much of a boost, I might just end up with 100% AJ Brown in lineups that have Jalen Hurts a captain. That's not what I want. So I'm going to give him a smaller boost. Devontae Smith, same kind of problem. He looks like he projects really well point per dollar. So I don't think I want to give him a full 12-point boost. I've said it before, I'll say it again. These are not perfect numbers. Dallas Goedert, same thing, projected for nearly 13 fantasy points at 6,600. Man, I can't give these guys full boosts, I don't think. Maybe Devontae Smith a little bit. Okay. Everybody else looks like they can be given full boosts among the primary pass catchers. But again, the running backs, they just don't really seem to correlate all that well with Jalen Hurts as far as catching touchdowns, catching passes. So I'm just going to give kind of minimal boost to the running backs. Could potentially just exclude them from this group. That might be the actual correct approach. None of these guys have gotten targeted a ton of times this year, especially because I'm only giving boost. I don't know that I really need to include these guys. I think I'm actually going to just exclude these running backs from this group and just have these pass catchers get little boosts when I have Jalen Hurts a captain. I think that is good enough. I'm going to name this group captain. All right, good enough. Second group I'm going to make is Davis Mills captain group. And it is the exact opposite of Hurts. Davis Mills is a statue out there. He does not, I think he has 10 rushing yards so far this year, has not shown much upside at all running the ball so far this year. So I'm going to make David Mills in the captain spot, my key player. And then I'm going to go find all of these Houston pass catchers. Anybody who has a projection and is on Houston, I'm just adding them to the secondary group. Who knows? Maybe tomorrow somebody else will pop up, or maybe just the guys that I'm already putting in here will have higher projections. If Brandon Cooks is out, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Again, it doesn't really matter for how I'm setting up right now. It might, it'll change tomorrow. Obviously, if Brandon Cooks is out, he will have a projection of 0, so I won't have to worry about him getting into my lineups. Okay, that looks good. And I should note, Rex Burkhead already has like 31, and now I can't remember. It was 31 receptions or 31 targets. Either way, he's very involved in the passing game, so he's going to be a big part of this. Dameon Pierce has like 21. I believe he has 21 receptions on 24 targets, or maybe 20 receptions on 24 targets, something along those lines. So, somewhat involved in the passing game, a little bit more than Miles Sanders or anybody on Philly. So these guys are a little bit more involved than the Philadelphia running backs. But with Davis Mills, so we saw with Jalen Hurts, I said only apply plus minus adjustments. With Davis Mills, I'm almost inclined to say if any key player is used, so that's Davis Mills in the captain spot, at least 2 players from this group. I don't think I'm going to do that, in part because of the salary. He is cheaper than Jalen Hurts, so I think it's at least a little bit more likely that he can get there without bringing along multiple pass catchers. Yeah, it's a tough spot. All these pass catchers are also fairly cheap, especially obviously if Brandon Cooks is out. All of these guys get boosts. I think I'm just going to leave it at 1 and just give boosts to all these players to make it more likely that if I have Davis Mills as captain, I get multiple of these pass catchers. I'm going to give Brandon Cooks a boost under the assumption that he will be playing. Obviously, if he's not playing, he will have a projection of 0, and a 4% boost on 0 is 0. So not a concern. All right, Philip Dorsett, going to give full boost here. None of these guys project all that well relative to Eagles pass catchers. If I want multiple Texans pass catchers in lineups that have Davis Mills as captain, I might have to end up coming back here and giving these guys bigger boosts. This is kind of where I start off. I'll have to wait and see how things look. Yeah, maybe I don't want to give Dameon Pierce any kind of bump here just because of he has the highest projection by far. I think that if I give him a boost, I'm going to end up getting just a ton of Davis Mills at captain, Dameon Pierce in the flex, and nobody else. So I just want to see what happens if I start with this group. And then finally, I'm going to create a group for Mills in the flex spot. I'm not going to bother making a Hurts in the flex spot group because, if I don't mind having Hurts at captain with no pass catchers, I certainly don't mind Hurts in the flex with no pass catchers. And they project well enough. They're probably going to be getting in there anyway. All right, so I'm going to make a Mills flex group. And now I'm finding Mills in the quarterback spot. That's the flex spot, making him my key player. And again, adding all of these Texans pass catchers to the secondary group. And the reason for this is it's just it'd be very hard for Davis Mills to make it into an optimal lineup to get enough fantasy points to be in an optimal lineup, given that he has no rushing upside. If he gets enough fantasy points to be in an optimal lineup, it's probably through the air. He's probably throwing at least one touchdown. And if he does, whoever's scoring that touchdown or whoever's getting, if he throws for hundreds of yards, whoever's getting those yards, they're outscoring him. So it'd be very hard for Mills to make it into the optimal lineup without somebody on his team, some pass catcher getting there as well. And you can see I'm also adding players from the captain spot. So all the same players that I added as flex plays in the secondary group, I'm also adding those same players as captains in the secondary group because here I don't have Davis Mills in the captain spot. I just have him in the flex spot. All right, looks good. So now I have all of my groups. And I think for this group, I might just say if Mills is used, use at least one pass catcher. I might not even give any kind of boost here. I don't think I necessarily need to. Again, I'm contemplating removing Dameon Pierce because even though he is involved in the passing game, he's not all that involved in the passing game. Maybe I'd prefer to have one of his more primary pass catchers with Mills in there, but I'll see what comes out first before I change anything. Hey guys, we have a great offer for new users only. You can get full access to everything Stokastic has to offer for NFL for 3 days free. Projections, ownership, 1v1 tools, lineup generator, top stacks tool, all free. Zero risk. Sign up now. The link is in the description of this video. Note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included in this offer. So that'll do it for my settings. Now I'm just going to crunch out 150 lineups and see what happens, see what comes out. And not surprisingly, I have Jalen Hurts in 149 out of 150 lineups. That's how well he projects. Not a huge shocker to me. And I don't know that I even will have much of an issue with that. Again, I'm not making player decisions here, but yeah, Jalen Hurts is going to have positive leverage in both the captain spot and the util spot currently. So looks great. Okay. Now, so I guess I'll start by looking at the correlations as I usually do. All right, so I'm going to sort this by top projected. And you can see Jalen Hurts didn't require any pass catchers, but I did give boost. So I'm getting Jalen Hurts with Goddard and Brown. Jalen Hurts with Goddard, no Brown. And neither of these has Davis Mills. I wonder how much I got. I only got 19% Davis Mills. He's not in either of these lineups. Jalen Hurts with Devontae Smith. Still no Davis Mills. Jalen Hurts with Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith. All right, let's see if I can find a Mills lineup somewhere here. Okay, Davis Mills in the flex spot with Cooks and Jordan. Jalen Hurts with no pass catchers. So this is an example. Jalen Hurts getting in there in the captain spot with 0 pass catchers. I think it can work. It's probably, not the likeliest outcome. Most likely if Jalen Hurts is putting up enough fantasy points to be the optimal captain, one of his pass catchers getting there. But with Jalen Hurts, because of that rushing upside, I think that it's certainly plausible for him to be the optimal captain without bringing along a pass catcher, and it'll be unique. Not a lot of people are going to make that kind of lineup, so I don't mind it. All right, maybe I'm just going to have to take a look. All right, I only have 6 Davis Mills captain lineups. Let's see what they look like. So I only required 1 pass catcher in Davis Mills captain lineups. Here I've got Davis Mills with Jordan and Cooks and Pierce, Mills with Akins and Cooks and Pierce, Jordan and Pierce, Jordan and Cooks, Akins, Jordan and Cooks. Okay. So only one that does not have multiple pass catchers. I'm kind of surprised. I kind of thought I would see more, but I guess I'm just not getting to a lot of Davis Mills captain lineups in general. Maybe that's something I want to change. Maybe I want a little bit more Davis Mills. If I do, here's what I can do. I can go back to my captain tab and just without giving Davis Mills an actual boost to his projection, I can go ahead and just give him a boost in the captain spot specifically if I want more Davis Mills captain lineups. And now I'll crunch another 150 and see what comes out. And now I'm getting 9.3% Davis Mills captain lineups. And I've got Mills with Jordan and Cooks and Pierce, Jordan and Pierce, Jordan Moore Pierce, Akins, Jordan Cooks Pierce. Getting to Pierce in a lot of these lineups. Wondering if I need to not even give him any kind of boost. I think I might not have given him a boost actually. So it's just he projects well enough to get in there. I'm glad to see that I'm at least getting some of these pass catchers along with him that I did give a boost to. Here's one that looks good, no Pierce. So maybe the passing game going a little bit better. We still have Hurts with Smith and Goddard, Mills with Akins and Cooks, well correlated all around. In general, though, these lineups all look fine. I don't see any that have such bad correlation that I think it has no chance of winning. I think all of these lineups look pretty fine. Again, it'll be interesting to see what the lineups look like with Cooks out, because I don't know how much of a boost these pass catchers are going to get for the Texans. It'll be definitely interesting to see. But I'm going to go through now. The other step that I take is just look at each individual position, go tab by tab and look at how much am I getting to of different players? How much do I want? Do I need to make adjustments? And I actually go through and make small changes to the projections until I get to exposure levels that I like. If you are new to Fantasy Cruncher and don't really know how to do this, I would recommend just giving a thumbs up if you want more of a player, or a thumbs down if you want less of a player. That's probably the safer way to go. But I'm just going to go ahead and make minor adjustments to projections. I don't even know yet what I'm doing. I don't know that I want more Davis Mills tomorrow. He obviously does not project all that great for a quarterback. But when I see 30% ownership on a quarterback in the flex spot, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see once if Cooks is out, how people actually approach this slate tomorrow. I think it's kind of an unknown slate, but less than 5% Mills in the captain spot, 30% in the flex spot actually is about what I would expect. So maybe I'm fine getting to about this number. Maybe let's give a little bit of a boost to get a little bit more. Mills. I do run the risk because I'm giving boost to his pass catchers in lineups. I guess not with Mills in the flex spot, so not a concern as far as flex ownership for Mills. As far as captain ownership, I will get a little bit more just because I am giving boost to all of his pass catchers when I have him in the flex. So it just makes it more, or in the captain spot. So it just makes it more likely that I'm going to get to more Davis Mills lineups because those are going to project better overall. All right, running back spot. Going to sort by salary here. Getting to virtually no Miles Sanders, getting to 65% Dameon Pierce. I don't know. I'm going to have to look at the tools, figure out if this is what I want tomorrow. My guess is I'm going to want a little bit more Sanders and less Pierce. It's obviously a great spot for Sanders in a game that the Eagles should win. And when I say I want more Sanders and less Pierce, I don't mean that I want more Sanders than Pierce. I just mean relative to this 65% and 12%. I think I'd like to inflate this a little bit, deflate this a little bit. So I'm going to change Sanders' projection to 15. I'm also going to change Pierce's projection to 15. Again, I'm just eyeballing it right now. This is just way more art than science. I'm going to probably end up running about 30 crunches before I'm done tomorrow. So I'm just kind of showing you my general thought process. The thought process behind giving them both the same projection here. I'm naturally going to get more Pierce still than Sanders because he is significantly cheaper than Sanders. If I give them the same projection, I'm going to get more Pierce than Sanders, which is the goal, but I want it to be less of a differential than I'm seeing here. So I'm just going to start here and, kind of keep playing around with it until I get to exposure levels that I like. Kenneth Gainwell, again, I have not made player decisions yet. I don't know. I'm going to be writing an article tomorrow. I'm going to be digging deep into snap counts, routes run, different metrics to kind of decide how I want to play this slate. But if I want more Kenneth Gainwell, which often I do want more of a player that I think has a chance to score a touchdown, he's 5,000, a little bit too expensive, but only 6.7% projected ownership. Maybe I want more Kenneth Gainwell. Maybe I'll give him a little bit of a projection boost. Rex Burkhead, very involved in the passing game. Maybe I'll give him a little of a projection boost. If I do this, I'm going to get more Burkhead than Gainwell because he's cheaper, same projection. I'm going to give Gainwell actually a little bit more of a projection boost. Goomba Wale, don't feel strongly about. Think I'd rather get two more Boston Scott. Maybe I'll give them both. 4. Wide receivers, getting to a good amount of the studs here. Again, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Brandon Cooks. My guess is if Cooks is out, obviously these guys' projections go up, but my guess would be that I get more of these studs. Their projections are just going to look significantly better than anybody else out here. And also, these cheap price tags, these guys projecting so well, getting more of these cheap guys will allow me to get more of the studs. That'll be interesting to see, but I'm going to assume maybe I'll run it now as though Cooks is out. No, I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm not going to make those kinds of decisions right now, but I'll give a little boost if I want more. Chris Moore coming in at low ownership. Philip Dorsett coming in at low ownership. Let's give these guys a little boost and see what happens. OJ Howard now project for under 3 fantasy points. So if I want him in my player set, I need to give him at least a projection of 3. I'll give him a little bit higher. Maybe I'll give him a 4-point projection. Brevin Jordan's going to look better at 1,000 than OJ Howard at 1,600. But, maybe I still want a little bit of OJ Howard. Jordan Aiken's already getting a good amount. Maybe Jack Stoll. Maybe I want a little bit of Jack Stoll. I don't know, Grant Calcaterra. Maybe I want to give Jack Stoll the higher projection because we had him projected higher than Grant Calcaterra. They're the same price. So if I want to keep kind of this, this assumption that Jack Stoll is more likely to get there, maybe I give Grant Calcaterra a projection of 3.4 and Jack Stoll a projection of 3.8. I don't even know if this is going to be enough to get them into my lineups, but that's just kind of the way I'm thinking about these things. Man, I'm getting to a lot of Jake Elliott. 46% Jake Elliott, 7.3% of Fairbairn. Maybe I want to get to a little bit more Fairbairn, so I'll just give him a little bit of a projection boost. I don't think I need to do anything to Jake Elliott's projection. I think because of the boost I've given to everybody else, I'm naturally going to get lower than 46% of Jake Elliott. I don't know exactly how much I want, but if I don't do anything to it, this is going to go down a little bit, and I think I'd be comfortable with that. So not going to change Jake Elliott's projection. And then defense, man, not getting to any defense. I don't think that's an approach I'm going to want to take. The Eagles are 7,000. That is a crazy salary. Projected for 18.3% ownership. It would not be shocking though to see that that ownership go up significantly. I don't know what I'm going to do with these defenses. It's I'm definitely going to have to be looking at the tools to make that decision tomorrow. For now, I think I'm going to give them a little bit of a boost just because these are really low numbers. I think I'm going to probably want more than those numbers, but there will probably be some sharp players who just completely fade the Eagles defense under the assumption that they're going to be 30 or 40% owned, and this is clearly a high salary for a defense on a showdown slate. I'll make that decision tomorrow. Texans defense, maybe I'll give them just a little bit of a boost, see if they can get into some lineups, and I'll crunch again. All right, still getting to let's see, 105 and 45. Now I'm getting to 100% Jalen Hurts in my lineups. So the changes I made here did not lower my Hurts exposure at all. Still not getting to much of the defenses. Jake Elliott, I think this might have actually gone up from what it was before. So I guess the boosts that I gave elsewhere were not enough to dissuade Jake Elliott shares. So maybe I need to give a boost to Fairbairn. Still not getting any there. Maybe I even need to lower my Jake Elliott. Tight end, only getting 1.3% OJ Howard. He might be sort of interesting. You got to play somebody from the Texans. Maybe OJ Howard gets a bigger share if Brandon Cooks is out, which again is not something we know right now, just something that I'm speculating might happen tomorrow. As I was hoping to do, I'm getting to more Jack Stoll than Grant Calcaterra, but probably don't need 17% Jack Stoll. Maybe I'd lower these numbers, maybe this to 3.4, this to 3. I don't know exactly what I'll do. Tons of Dallas Goedert. Don't know if I really want 61%. That's probably a concession I can make, get a little bit lower there. Tyrone Johnson. If I get 6% Tyrone Johnson, I think I'll be pretty happy with that. 3.6% ownership. Like to get a little bit above the field on him. Quez Watkins, you saw I was getting much more than 13.3% before making adjustments to some players. So this went down significantly. I don't know if I wanted to go down that significantly. He projects really well for a player who's 1,400. So maybe I need to make an adjustment here to get a little bit more Quez Watkins. Not getting to any Zach Pascal. That's probably not what I want. Maybe I need to boost this up to 6 fantasy points. Philip Dorsett, maybe I need to give, I'm only getting 1.3%. Maybe I need to boost him to, another fantasy point or so. Chris Moore is going to look, he's going to look great, especially if Brandon Cooks is out. But even if Brandon Cooks is in, Chris Moore is the wide receiver 2. So maybe I want more than 5.3% there. Again, not really making these decisions right now, just kind of showing you my thought process as I'm going through position by position, looking at different players. Do I want more? Do I want less? How do players look relative to each other? What are their salaries? What are their projections? How do I get more and how do I get less of different players? Again, if you're new to Fantasy Cruncher, you can do a lot of this with just thumbs up and thumbs down. There are sometimes big enough gaps where that's not going to be enough. But in general, you can get where you want to be without going through what I'm doing right here. And to be honest, there's no real need to. These projections are as good as they get. You could just stop where I was after I made my correlations, before I made any of these changes. You could just crunch out 150 lineups and it might be a better 150 set than what I'm doing right now. The way I play, I like to play some strange guys. I think that it's helpful on showdown slates. It's a way to get more unique lineups, to get to some lineups that are not going to be used by anybody else. But you might have a better shot at actually winning if you don't go through and do what I'm doing and adjust projections and stuff. It's really something I'm doing more as a way to get unique. But, maybe if you just trust the projection, you'll get to lineups that actually have a better shot of winning, even if they're not winning quite as much money. They're still going to be probably not duplicated a ton because we have left some salary on the table. You've already taken some steps to get unique. So you don't necessarily need to be adjusting these projections at all, and certainly not on the number of players that I am. You could probably get by with adjusting a few projections or just giving a couple thumbs up here and there to get a little bit different. You don't need to be going through the drastic steps that I do in playing Showdown. I find it fun to go through and to get to, kind of exact levels that I want to get to. But everybody has a different style. This is certainly not something that everybody that is going to work for everybody. Other people can have more success probably without going through and adjusting all of these projections. I'm just showing you one way to do it. This is the way I do it. I've had some success doing it, but there are a lot of great Showdown players out there who have completely different methods than the way I play. So certainly not necessary. Anyway, that'll do it for this video. I hope you can find some success this weekend. Hope you can find some success tonight using this or a similar strategy. Good luck.